call this City Commission meeting for Thursday, July 20th, 2023 at 6 o'clock at Commission Chambers open. And first we will have invocation by Pastor Todd Ellis from Bread of Life Ministries. If you'll stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge.
Yes, I just first of all want to thank you for the invitation to be here to pray tonight. And I want to thank you each and every one for the great job you do for our city. And it's a great pleasure to be in a city that still honors prayer. Amen. So let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this privilege, this great opportunity we have to be able to communicate with our King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And we come to you tonight, Father, with humble hearts. And we thank you for this dear city that you have blessed us with. We thank you for these precious people that you have placed in authority. And Father, our prayers are with them as your scriptures teach us to pray for those in authority in our land. We pray for them daily. We ask you, Father, to continue to be with each and every one, to make good, godly decisions, Father, led by your Spirit, that would be for the betterment of our city, not for political gain, not for greed, not for any other reason, but for love and humility, that our city would be blessed, and that everyone who comes here to raise their families and to live and to work would be in a place that is safe and that is blessed and is prosperous. And we speak blessing over this city, Father, that you would continue to open doors and avenues and possibilities for new jobs and growth, that we would be a prosperous city for all of our residents. And Father, we ask you for your guidance, your wisdom, and your insight, and your peace to ever fill this chamber. In Jesus' name. Amen?
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do the pledge. If you, everyone, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Paul.
Yes. Good afternoon, Commission members. Your first order of business is item 3.1, which is to consider the approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled City Commission meeting held on Thursday, June 29th, 2023.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
I abstain. I was not present.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
And Mayor, if I may be excused to go down for the next presentation. Thank you. I am going to pull up a presentation, and I appreciate your patience with me as I pull this presentation up. As many of you all know, we have been long awaiting and have been working for the past year with the Daigle law firm to receive an audit on how the city police department performs sexual assault cases and investigates them. So tonight I'm here before you to be able to present to you the findings of that, and I appreciate the fact that you're going to let me kind of walk through those findings and be able to talk to you a little bit about what got us here and be able to present this information to you. So starting out, I'd like to talk to you about the background. I know that you all know this, but it just as a refresher to you. We have, as I said before, been working on this for a year now. Last July of 2022, we heard from our citizens that there was a concern about the way the city police department handles sexual assault cases. In August, the city took action in order to find a law firm, a nationally recognized law firm named Daigle Law Group, to be able to conduct this audit of the city in terms of the way investigations were done, and we'll go into detail a little bit more about that process, which I think that you will find was very thorough. In October, after our new DA, General Finney, took office, he had been working through September, but he had established a protocol. This is important because as we talk about this presentation and as we talk about the recommendations, the protocol that was provided through DA Finney proves to fit into meeting a lot of the criteria around recommendations that were made by Daigle through this audit. In February, Bill Church was named as the interim police chief, and then following in May of 2023, he was named as the permanent chief of the police department, as well as the command staff that you see before you tonight. In May of 2023, and acknowledging that we had had some conversations with Daigle, we hired a staff attorney, particularly for the Johnson City Police Department, Blake Watson, who has been in the process and been working in that area to review the policies and procedures, which are referred to as general orders by the police department, and been making changes and making improvements to those general orders. In June of 2023, the staff brought before you some recommended budget changes, budget adjustments to address some things that we felt like would be needed to help improve the process of investigating sexual assaults. Those included an additional amount of money for training. That was a significant amount of money in addition to what the commission already put into the police department's training budget. And again, I want to take this opportunity as we go through the presentation to be able to kind of, I know that you all are very familiar with this, but we also want to use this as an opportunity to kind of educate the public around the amount of training the police department already does as a part of being certified as a police officer. Additionally, there is in the current budget $50,000 allocated for a new records management system that will help consolidate all the different kinds of records management systems within the police department. Again, I point out to you that some of the information that we found is that records are kept in different places. Different divisions within the police department had different systems to keep up with information, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. I also want to add that this year we recognize that the Child Advocacy Center, which deals with child sexual harassment, sexual assault cases, is a significant partner to the city in addition to our Family Justice Center. So this year, for the first time, you all were able to provide funding to assist them in helping complete and round out the way the city handles all sexual assault cases, including children. And then on July 10th, the city received the Daigle report. We have spent the last week reviewing it, and I want to tell you a little bit about what's happened this week in order to make sure that we are all kind of on point with what's happening. As I said before, we received the document from Daigle Law Firm. Daigle sent it directly to our city attorney, and we reviewed it. We have spent time reviewing it. It was released and put on our website with a cover letter on Tuesday morning. The goal of this was to provide transparency, to be able to allow everyone to see this document. As you all know, there are pieces of it that aren't flattering and reveal some needed improvements that need to be made within the department. On that afternoon, we had a media briefing. We met with all the media outlets in the area. We offered it to anyone. We had several who attended. I want to speak a little bit about that. We had an opportunity to come before them to tell them what the audit found. We had a great opportunity to say to them that, especially to the victims, that we regret what happened to them, that we acknowledge to them that there were cases that could have been handled better by the police department, and that we are willing to work with them, work on those cases on a case-by-case basis with the DA in order to relook at those that need to be relooked at after we have a chance to evaluate them. We also had an opportunity, I had a personal opportunity to speak to the police department staff. We have an incredible staff here at the police department. I have every bit of confidence that our command staff, along with our investigators, along with all of our patrol, and then all of the support staff, have the best intentions of doing right by the city. I think this is a document that has been provided to us that gives us a pathway of improving the good work that's already being done. And I will tell you, in conversations with them, they embrace this document. initially it is very hard to hear, but they embrace it and they look forward to making changes so that we can serve our community better. And there was also just in that statement, we are acknowledging to the community that we can rebuild their trust in us. We want victims to know that we want you to come to us. We hope that the route that you choose for justice is to come to the police department or the DA's office in order to have justice served, and whichever route they find most comfortable. So I just wanted to reiterate that to you. We also had an opportunity to meet with a citizens group. That citizens group, we have been involved in conversation with that group for the past 8 months, I would say. We had 2 listening sessions back in, I want to say October. We had another listening session maybe 2 months ago, and then we followed up Tuesday with another meeting with those individuals to be able to just sit down across the table and have a conversation. And then tonight we're before you to make a report. The purpose of tonight, above and beyond what we did with the media briefing, in which we fully come in hand saying we have come forward with this report of our own merit to say this is how we can improve and we want to be transparent. But tonight we're going to spend time talking to you specifically about how we're going to do that and how we're going to be held accountable, what the measures are that we're going to take, and how we plan on moving forward. Thank you for allowing me to kind of give that overview of the work that's been done. So a little bit about the process to this point. It was extremely thorough. We have a few highlights up here, but the Daigle law firm, as part of this process, reviewed more than 325 cases. Those were looking at all separate files and complaints that have been charged on all kinds of sexual assault cases. These cases range in dates from January of 2018 all the way to December of 2022, and they include reports, transcripts, videos, and I think you'll learn more about how these different pieces of information were kept in different places. They followed up after some review of investigative files with an on-site visit in December of 2022, interviewed approximately 10 to 12 folks that had been involved in those investigations. The process also included opening up a portal, a secure portal to victims. So we wanted to provide victims an opportunity to communicate with Daigle without going through the city, without fear of any retribution or thought of that, and to allow them to communicate directly to him through that portal. We always try, and you've seen this, and I would say this again, sometimes this is so much information that you're gathering. What we say is, if you don't remember anything, we hope that you'll remember this piece. And this is probably more to the community because the commission is just heard more about this. But the key takeaways is that we had a lawyer perform this audit. His credentials were that he's a licensed attorney. He used to be a police officer and is now an attorney. And he has determined through all of this research and all of the feedback, in which many of you could say gave us a lot of area for improvement, that there was no willful intent, no corruption, or no illegal activity on the part of the city. And I think that's worthy of noting because obviously within the report, it is difficult to read, it's difficult to hear some things, but none of this was done based upon a professional with any corruption, illegal activity, or willful intent. The second key takeaway, which we have recognized in conversations very early on, is that we need to improve our records management system. We had originally committed that this report would take 5 to 6 months. And what we found that was because of the issues associated with the record keeping and being able to compile files and pull together complete documents, it lengthened the time that it took to complete this work. So we will speak a lot about the improvements that we can make in that area. As noted, there were 8 findings, so it goes without saying that each of those findings give us opportunity for improvement, and we plan to lay out a roadmap for you on how we're going to do that. The roadmap we're going to lay out to you has been in conjunction with the police department staff. So we're not laying out something for you that we hope we can do. We're laying out something for you that we know we can do. Additionally, I mentioned this already. You'll probably get tired of me saying this, but a big, huge leap for us in moving forward on what we're doing is having the district attorney's protocol in place. I'll talk a little bit more when I talk about specifics about how that's used, but I would have to say that that has been a huge component in giving us a roadmap, and then we have supplemented it and worked with them to make sure that we're refining things as things change. The findings and responsive actions. So you all have seen the report, and you've seen that there are a number, as I said, 8 findings. We've categorized these and then provided for you a goal, an action step, and a status. What this means to us is it becomes a living document. It isn't just words on paper. It becomes something that we come back to you in 6 months and we report on, and we all take accountability for it. I'm standing before you today, but we have a group of people that are sitting here that are all taking accountability and responsibility for that. I've told you before, the greatest asset we have is we know how to build teams, we know how to get work done, and we're committed to doing this work. The first one, the commission took action on. So I would have to say thank you very much for even prior to receiving this report. You budgeted $50,000 to be able to get a new records management system. That money is in our current budget that we're in. On this item, I would point out to you that that was a holding spot. We looked at some different options in putting that number together, but I would just, for transparency's sake, say that that number is not completely firm. So you may see us come back to you. It may be less, it may be more, but I just want to point out in all transparency. So the next step, obviously, within this one is to implement that plan. So staff is in the process of talking to other agencies, going to other agencies to look at demonstrations from them, finding out which system works best, trying to find a system that also works well with our district attorney's office, so they're able to pull in records easily. We don't want to make this better on our end and end up hurting the ability of someone else to do their job. I'll also point out that a large part of this is that, and Daigle pointed this out, told us this, we have to get buy-in from all levels of the organization when we look at a records management system. Because a records management system that may appear to work for command staff in terms of generating reports, providing information, may not be user-friendly. And if y'all recall, we just went through some very painful efforts in dealing with the latest financial. And so we have learned from that as well. And so we are trying to be generous in terms of let's make the right decision, let's make the right choice, let's make sure we can use it as we move forward. Finding number 2, sexual assault investigations had material deficiencies. Again, we point this out to you. Implementation of the DA protocol is key in being able to make sure that we have those consistencies and that we don't have deficiencies. I would say in addition to what the district attorney provided us, our own staff has provided a list with each of those on it that the investigator signs off on as being completed, and it gets put in the file. So if there's a checklist and it says to do a certain thing, the investigator says this is complete, or this was done, or this is what happened with it, and that becomes a part of the file. I will also point out that there have been, even recently, there's been some changes in terms of how we provide support services to victims. The DA has been able to work with Ballad to bring in the branch house. That is included, and now there's protocol within that we're working through to make sure that the policies and procedures in the police department, including the protocol, include the efforts to help the victim as they move forward in getting the rape kits, as they use a SANE nurse, as they get an advocate. This is complete, but I would tell you this will be a living document that we will continue to refine as we learn more. We will provide training to respond. And again, we're in the process of, again, it was a very generous amount, $100,000. We know that training in a lot of these areas is very expensive. Staff is in the process of evaluating the best training to meet all of these findings. you will find that that's a consistent recommendation throughout most of these findings. And so what we are doing is we're prepared when we come back to you. If we haven't completed a training, we will be providing you with a list of optional training, who can be attending that, but we will demonstrate to you how that money will be spent. The other item that you see when you look at the report, it refers to the recommendations that Daigle has. One of those is hold people accountable. In discussing this with our staff, one of the ways to do that is to have a quality control mechanism. So right now, when a file is worked on and completed, the supervisor, the lieutenant, the sergeant, the captain review that file. So we're proposing to add another layer by having someone in our Office of Professional Standards review monthly those files to be able to make sure that the information in there is accurate and complete. Putting metrics up there, it would be looking at least 10% of those per month, but in no case less than 5 of them, depending on how many are active. We think that gives us the ability to have another layer of someone looking at this information, checking over it. We will begin that in August, and the reason being that it would be for a full month's worth of work. So at the end of August, we would have completed 5 or 10%, whichever is greater. Finding number 3, sexual assault investigations were inconsistent, ineffective, and incomplete. We realize that part of this and the recommendation is that we need to utilize services that help the victim more, that provide support services to the victim. We are re-identifying ways that the Family Justice Center, I want to acknowledge that Debbie Dunn, who was with us prior and has worked with us, is our director of the, she serves as the director of the Family Justice Center. So we are beginning the process of making that center available 24/7 to patrol, to investigators, to advocates, to be able to use a room that's considered to be a safe room. I think they refer to it as a den, but it's a place that doesn't have shackles, a place that doesn't feel like people are being interviewed as if they were an assailant. We can record them there, but they can be an environment where it doesn't feel like we're treating them like we would an assailant. Additionally, I mentioned that we're doing the checklist. So this is in the process of being worked on. I will tell you that we've tried to identify dates, but I think this is in the works right now. But we'll be definitely in place by next month. Also, I've mentioned before, policies and procedures. I would share with you that I was surprised to find out that the police department has 182 policies and procedures. They refer to them as general orders. They have 182 that consist of over 2,800 pages of documents. So being able to go through those documents, rectify where there's inconsistencies, making sure that all of the stuff that's been recommended by Daigle in terms of the way we handle sexual assaults is referenced correctly is a priority in terms of the work that our staff attorney Blake Watson will be doing. And that will be completed in October of 2023. And again, training officers to help perform victim-centered investigations. We know based upon the report, based on information, that the majority of victims of sexual assault are females. And we oftentimes have learned through research that those victims prefer to have a female investigator because they can relate to them better and they may have been assaulted by a male. We know that we will seek to be able to provide that, but not in all cases will we be able to do that. So we need to train everyone in that area to be able to handle and to be able to work with victims of sexual assault. That will be included, and we will be able to identify how that training will happen. Finding number 4, process of closing sexual assault investigations was flawed and inaccurate. Again, it speaks to providing supervisory oversight. That's a theme that we heard throughout the report, to make sure that these are closed in a proper manner and hold supervisors accountable. We're recommending, as we did in the other one, that there be an oversight through the Professional Standards Office, that these files be checked by the supervisors and then checked again through that office on a monthly basis. and we can report back to you on that. And this will begin in August as well. Finding number 5, all complaints of misconduct should be investigated in a timely manner. Within the police department's general orders or policies and procedures, it does call for complaints to be against police officers to be investigated through an internal affairs office. In referencing and reading the material that Daigle provided, he specifically referenced when a lawsuit occurs. So when a lawsuit occurs, our practice had been if someone was named in that was an employee, we allowed the legal process of the lawsuit to work its way through to identify the facts around the case. In listening to Daigle, he says a lawsuit is considered a complaint and should be investigated internally when we get that complaint. So we are in the process of revising policies, general orders to be able to comply with this one, to be completed in September of 2023. Finding number 6 was supervision was inefficient to ensure thorough sexual assault investigations. You know, I have to step back a little bit, and I want to be very balanced. I will tell you all that I feel like it's, I feel like I do have the ability to see things as they are, but I have to tell you that I have the utmost confidence through the process of me being able to talk to, work with the command staff that we have before us. So I would generally say of this one, while we're putting extra protocol in place, and it's the right thing to do, I believe that our current command staff understands, knows, and will hold accountable under any condition what needs to happen in the case of sexual assault, as with any other issue within the police department. So I can assure the community wholeheartedly that I have confidence, not that we won't make mistakes, but that I believe the intent and that there is full commitment to do what's right by this community. But again, we're recommending that we have an oversight portion of this. Our performance office, performance standards office, take a second look at those. Those report up to a different area within the organization, and there be that ability of them to review it and then go through a different chain to report any indiscrepancies or any missing documents. Finding number 7, policies and procedures did not meet industry standards and requirements. Again, we will continue to work with the DA's office and accrediting agencies to make sure that we become a model. You know, it was interesting when we had the opportunity to do the review with the media, and that within this report that felt very heavy, again, it was hard to read, hard to digest. We said we're glad we have it, we're glad we have a roadmap, but within the document itself, he speaks to the fact that we can become one of the best agencies in the region. And so the question was asked, how can that be when you have a report that calls out so many things that you could do better? We have a roadmap. I firmly believe that there are a lot of agencies who've never had an audit, who don't know specifically what's happening in this realm and understand the research and what's happening with victims of sexual assault, the trauma around it, the support they need. We know that now. And so we have this ability to move this organization forward in a very different way, that we can be a standout or role model. We can help other agencies in our community to be able to do this better. The protocol again was implemented and has been working. We have been working with folks, and this will continue to go. Again, part of our whole model is continuous improvement. When we're asked, why did we do this investigation? Why did we do this audit? Because we want to improve. We will continue to do the same thing as we move forward. Again, policies and procedures will be reviewed to make sure that they're cross-referenced, that there isn't duplication in one that speaks differently in another. That will be completed in October of 2023. And then finally, the 8th finding was that training was insufficient or ineffective to have an unbiased sexual assault investigation. Again, we're looking at training not only for officers, investigators, patrol officers, people who first encounter victims of sexual assault, but throughout the whole department, we'll be working on that. We'll be incorporating new policies, and we will provide this training in the manner that we've talked about. And again, a huge thank you. An ask at a time even before we had this document to reassure us of $100,000 being dedicated to this resource, in addition to what the police department gets, was a huge lift on your part. So I say thank you. The police department says thank you for being able to provide this. I would end with, again, the takeaways. For folks watching this, for folks who have been following this, I would just again reiterate the same thing. This thorough report that took a year to do, that looked at over 325 cases, that told us there was no corruption, no willful intent, and no illegal activity. I just would want the public to know that. Our records management system, again, needs work. Probably the biggest discrepancy and the biggest issue that we found. We have a lot of opportunity for improvement, but we know what that improvement is, and we can do it. We can't, again, say enough to the DA's office for the partnership, for the relationship we've developed with them. I failed to point out that one of the big things, the big tools that was given to us as part of the DA's protocol, was that they now offer up an on-call 24/7 person to come to a scene. The minute we're called, because no, of course I'm speaking from talking to folks, every situation is different. So being able to have someone there who can identify issues that may not fit just the protocol, but may speak to there's other information that we should look into, and having that partnership that allows us to do that was huge in terms of talking to our folks. And I would just like to say thank you. I know that this was a long presentation. This was a lot in the works, and I know that the community has had a significant interest in this.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Anyone like to comment?
I certainly would.
Good.
Mrs. Ball, if you would stay up there, I would appreciate it. First of all, I want to thank you for the very well-organized presentation. I think for us, even though we've seen the report, and to the public who may or may not have seen the report, I think you presented it in a way that was very understandable, and I appreciate that. You know, you had been with the city as city manager less than 8 months when the first public complaints came in. And I just want to commend you for the fact that you stepped up and you stood up to address this issue square on. And the leadership that you're showing in doing the audit and getting this returned to us is something now that we can use as a roadmap. So I just want to tell you, I admire you for that. I admire you for the fact that you don't back away from tough issues, and you've stepped up to this, and I appreciate it. And with Chief Church and for the command staff and all the men and women of the Johnson City Police Department, have complete confidence in the leadership as we go forward. The other thing that's very important that I just really want to comment on, and for us commissioners and for all staff of the city, you know, one of our obligations is the well-being and care of all of our constituents, particularly of victims of crime. And as you mentioned, Ms. Ball, most of the victims of sexual assault are women. So as a woman, as the mother of a daughter and the mother of 2 granddaughters, the care and well-being of these victims are particularly important. I feel confident in what you've shown here as goals and objectives that we already have in place or are moving to get in place. I think the Family Justice Center, which I'm very familiar with, and the Child Advocacy Center are going to be great attributes and help to our officers who are investigating these. So I just want to say thank you, and I know that you can count on my support for any future requirements that we need to do to you know, promote our approach to this. So thank you.
Wes?
Just to say, it was very well said, Commissioner Brock, and thanks for the presentation. I appreciate the transparency around this and the continued updates, not only to us, the commission, but to the general public with the additional meetings that staff has had to really answer questions of the public in general, especially those that have heightened interest in this particular topic. And I'd also like to say that I'm proud to serve in a city with an elected body and staff that, like me, take this seriously and willingly take a very difficult and honest look at how we do things and how we can do things better for the community. So thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Manager Ball, I appreciate you taking the initiative and inviting the city into this process, which has been challenging for all of us. But we all agree that accountability is very important to the community. We live in a great city, and finding ways to improve is important because our community deserves the best service. And so I want to thank you for initiating this process so that we can be better overall. And I also thank the police department for being open and transparent. We all are responsible, and we will take action to take the proper steps and to be a better organization. So I concur with my fellow commissioners here with what they've said prior. We're in this together, and we'll do whatever it takes to advance the vision and mission of Johnson City.
I guess I would just add, a year ago, when these issues really were brought to the fore, it was frustrating in some respects, the speed at which government sometimes seems to move. But I think it's important for people to distinguish between haste and swiftness. We could have acted hastily and potentially behaved in a way inconsistent when the truth and light shone on what the fundamental issues were, but we didn't do that. But we moved swiftly, and I think the outline timeframe that you outlined from July to August to the fall shows that. And I think honestly owning the fact that the report that we thought would take 6 months that took a year to produce was a byproduct of one of the 8 findings of the eventual audit. And I think something you said that maybe people need to hear, Attorney Daigle reported to a city attorney this report. And what that means is if we'd wanted to play games with this audit, we could have shielded it by attorney-client privilege. We could have said, this is a privileged document, and there certainly would have been all sorts of reasons. I mean, there are some very troubling details in this report. That might have been a really convenient thing to do, but it wouldn't have been the right thing to do. The right thing to do is let the light shine into what this report highlights. And I think that gives us sort of a clear jumping off point where we can all agree on what the fundamental issues were and what the facts have been revealed or the findings have been revealed to be. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started out on the process of hiring a new city manager. When we did that and we made that offer and we signed that contract at this table down here, I did not anticipate what the first year of a new city manager would look like, but I did have the utmost confidence we'd made the right choice. I am more convinced of that now than I was that day. And I think I want to just reiterate that because I think what we are trying to do here is fundamentally change the way we, and I mean this in the most inclusive we, approach these sorts of crimes and these sorts of victims. And I'm not talking about Johnson City. I'm talking about all of criminal justice. And whether that's things like the Family Justice Center, that was a joint partnership between the city and the county some 7 or 8 years ago, and has continued to be to today, to the Child Advocacy Center, to some of the things that are being done with the Attorney General's protocol. These are all things that move us from where we are, move us from where we've been, to where we want to be. And I just want to, I think, reiterate our support for you and for the command staff, but more so to the roadmap that's in front of us and the benchmarks that you've outlined, and hitting those points, and we look forward to hearing those reports, because that is going to be what reflects this commission's commitment to those outcomes. And when the day comes, because these issues are not unique to Johnson City, these challenges are not, some of them, unique to Johnson City, let us be the best practice. Let us be the benchmark other agencies look to say, here's how you deal with it. And I would aspire to us being that model.
Anything else? All right, well, I will end with, I agree with everything that's been said up here. We are a team together to work on this. I'm confident with our city manager, with our command staff, with the police department we have, that we're going to move forward to be that model for other cities, for us to be a shining star. And we've got a lot of great officers in our department. We've got a lot of great people doing the command staff job, and I know that they are dedicated to protecting the citizens of Johnson City, and that's what this is about. And so we are 110% behind them doing that. Whatever it takes to do that job, we want to be behind them. So you can be confident that we're going to be there with you to make sure that this goes through. So thank you for everything. Thank you for your presentation. So it is not our usual protocol to open up a meeting for public comment for a presentation that was given, but because of the significance of this topic, we wanted to offer the community an opportunity for their voice to be heard. We ask that if you would like to speak, you follow our standard public comment guidelines, that you have 3 minutes for your remarks, and it needs to be specific to this Daigle report. If there are any other questions or concerns beyond that topic, we've got city management here that will welcome those comments and take them seriously, and Mrs. Ball has clearly demonstrated that we are serious about this. Comments can be submitted to publiccomment@johnsoncitytn.org. We are not going to be able to respond to your comments tonight, but staff will be taking notes and can do follow-up as needed for those comments. And so I'm now going to open this for public comment for the Daigle report, and anybody that would like to speak, you can come forward, and I will open public comment on the Daigle report. If you will give your name and your address and come on up. Said you got 3 minutes, and we're
Full
welcome.
address or full address?
Yes, well,
Okay. Hi, I'm Jacob Llewellyn. I live at 302 Lamont Street. I mostly have a few questions. I read this report today. I found it particularly unsettling. I really appreciate your presentation. However, I do have to say, I don't think it was stressed enough, some of the disturbing facts in this report. And honestly, if this is the only time that somebody's going to get information about it, I think we need to know that a huge number of rapist suspects were just not followed up with at all. I have a few questions I want to get across. First, it's my understanding that the new leadership that has been put into place after the retirements of the previous leadership in February are all internal promotions. They are people who have been with the department for decades. I'm sorry, I don't know you all, but this is my take. I'm highly suspect of these officers being able to make this transition that needs to happen, given that they have been steeped in the same culture that resulted in the incidences that produced this report. I'd also like to get more insight into what specific kind of training is going to be used. Given that it is such a deeply widespread cultural issue, and it admits it in the report, that some of this the huge problem was just not finding women credible or dismissing their accounts for sexual stereotypes. So I'm curious how that training any kind of training would actually address that. And just a general comment as a whole, given the systemic failures that were outlined in this report, I don't feel good about more money being given to that department. Whether it's, especially for potential raises. Yeah. That's my bit. I think the only bit I'm gonna share, if you're watching this, if you've never read the report, I'm gonna share this one line. A significant concern is that of the 105 known suspects identified, the suspect was interviewed in only 36 cases. Therefore, in 133 rape-related cases between 2018 and 2022, only 34% of the known and identified suspects were interviewed or even contacted. Thank you for letting me speak.
Appreciate your concern. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Chris Edwards, been in the city for about a year. I might have a different take than the gentleman before me. So in my short time, I have personally taken the time to get to know the city leaders, those that are now in place, filling retirements. I feel extremely comfortable and confident that this group and this leader are the right people. And if other citizens haven't taken the chance to pick up the phone, to take them out to lunch, to get to know them, then they're the ones that haven't done their job. The one thing I will share in common with the gentleman before me, and my fear is this: if we find people that did not do their job as this investigation continues, as a tax-paying citizen, I would cringe and be offended if they are allowed to keep their retirements or any other thing that they earned along the way. And I don't believe I'm the only citizen that feels that. But outside of that, wonderful job, Chief Church, you and your team. Keep doing what you're doing. Cathy, fantastic job. And something that you said about having this city be a poster child or a best-in-class example. Cathy will probably chuckle. I continually send her best-in-class examples of other cities that I see in my travels. Nothing would make me happier to be able to take this example to the other cities that I visit. And I am here to support in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one else, I will close the public comment. And now I'm going to open, we've got a new protocol the state has put down to us about public comment just in general. So no one signed up for tonight, but I will give you the protocol that we're going to go by. Since this is a new process for us, community members are invited to offer comments on actionable items that are coming up on our agenda that night. We're going to do this at the start of each meeting. We ask that you sign up no less than 12 hours ahead of time. So we give out what's coming up on our agenda early, and so 12 hours before our meeting, we'd ask you to sign up to speak on the actionable agenda items. There's an online form at www.johnsoncitytn.org/public comment, or you can call 423-434-6002. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we're going to limit the number of speakers to 12 for the public comment. It should be noted that public hearings for ordinances, which are different than just general items on our agenda, typically are held on the second reading. We'll have some of those tonight. They're going to remain the same. This is not to change that protocol, but just for public hearing on our actionable agenda items. So anybody who wishes to speak as part of an ordinance would not be speaking during the general public comments at the first of the meeting. But seeing no one registered for comments, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda tonight. Ms. Ball.
And Commission, your next item on the agenda is item 6, and we may have a few people who need to step out now. So I don't know if we want to let folks who, from public comment, step out. But we have item 6, which is street closings. Item 6.1, road closure request for the TriPride Festival and Parade Saturday, September 23rd. And I think we have Miss Lindsay Jones here to speak to that.
Good evening, Commissioners. And Cathy, thank you for all that you do. As a new employee, it's very humbling to work for this organization and our city leaders. Okay, we do have 2 road closures today. The first one is TriPride. They are requesting the following closures for their parade and festival on Saturday, September 23rd. A soft partial closure on Commerce Street from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. as part of their festival footprint, as well as an intermittent temporary closure on Commerce Street, Main Street, and Market Street for their parade route from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Special Events Committee, including Police and Public Works, have reviewed the attached site plan and find the proposed closures safe and appropriate. We recommend approval for these closures.
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes. Would you like to talk to us about the event?
Hi, yes, my name is Melody. I'm president of TriPride, and first I'll thank you for approving the closures and having our festival. TriPride is an organization that's mission is to bring a stronger and more inclusive community to Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. We actually had our inaugural event in 2018 in Johnson City, so we're extremely excited to be back here again. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Commission, the next order of business is item 6.2, which is a road closure request for the Science Hill School Homecoming Parade. Thank you, Ms. Lindsay.
Science Hill High School requests intermittent temporary closures on Liberty Bell Boulevard, Pactolus Road, and Cotty Jones Lane for their homecoming parade on September 29th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. The Special Events Committee, including Public Works and Police, have reviewed the site plan and find the proposed closures safe and appropriate. We recommend approval.
Move approval.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes. Would you like to talk about homecoming?
Homecoming is upon us. It's hard to believe it's about 2 months away. Puts football season that much closer and the start of school. We appreciate your support and the support of the police department. We have a lot of children involved in this parade. In addition to the high school students, our clubs and activities sponsor floats. We have our band, which is over 100 students who start the parade. Last year, we invited our elementary and middle schools to participate in the parade, so that greatly increased the number of floats, as well as the number of children in the event and the number of spectators along the parade route. So we appreciate the support the city provides to keep our students and community safe at this event.
I dare to say that is the hilliest parade route of any homecoming parade in the nation.
Ms. Siguroa, who's one of our other administrators, who's here with me, we stand at both the beginning and the end of the parade, and the children are quite winded, the ones who walk the route, as well as the adult chaperones with them. So you are correct, it is quite hilly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commission, the next order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda.
All right, I will start to my left. Commissioner Hunter, do you have anything to pull?
No. Thank you.
Commissioner Brock.
Just like to pull 7.1.1 so we have a little bit better understanding of what the possibilities are here.
All right. And Vice Mayor.
7.1.3.
All right, 7.1.3. And
7.1.4.
7.1.4. All right, and I do not have anything else. So we'll start with 7.1.1.
This is a consideration of approval of the resolution allowing the city to apply for the American Rescue Plan competitive grant to fund stormwater feature at West Walnut Street. I don't know if we have Mr. Best here or if
That gentleman.
Wallace.
Oh. Wouldn't that be John?
Or
John Lane?
I think we have Anne Marie French to speak to this, I'm sorry.
Hi there.
Hey.
Okay, so just unfortunately, interim director Andy Best isn't here tonight, so I'm stand-in. So I hope that I can answer all of your questions.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the possibility of us actually receiving these funds, and they'll be used in the West Walnut Street corridor, is that
Yes.
what it
Yes.
is? Oh, there's
Okay.
Walnut.
Yes, we're working with First Tennessee Development District for this application, and they indicated that they felt very strongly that we would have a good package. If be based on we've done similar things of this nature in the past, and we have that to point to.
Okay.
And then I'll let Wallace speak more directly.
So what we're trying to do with the funding is, on the storm pond, it's gonna be on the old Harmon Ice property, and then over next to where the well church is supposed to go in. And so it allows us to do things that we might not be able to do otherwise. More enhanced landscaping, stormwater features that will pull pollutants out, and the ability even possibly to construct a wet pond or a water feature in it that has rock that we would have to excavate out that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So it makes us, I think it makes the area a lot more pleasing to look at. I think it'll be a nice feature if we get this.
So it might be a permanent pond that would have water in it all the time? or-
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Let us know when we get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item requested by the Vice Mayor is consider approval of resolution of the disillusionment of the Public Building Authority. I think if you have any questions, Mr. Trivett may be able to answer it. Thank you. Thank you, Sonny.
Yes, the Public Building Authority was authorized by the Board of Commissioners a number of years ago. They were organized under a state statute and set to do a particular purpose. At this time, the tasks that they were given have all been satisfied. All the funds have been properly allocated. There are remaining funds whenever the dissolution, if the dissolution is approved, and those would go back to the city.
Was the original purpose of the PBA having to do with MedTech Corridor? The Millennial Center, okay.
Yes.
And because they basically were the oversight of that? Okay. So there was no other purpose of it, or could we possibly need it again? Okay.
And the MedTech project was one of their projects as
That's what I
well, but that,
thought.
yes.
Okay.
That was the most recent project, but that's reached a position where their service is no longer necessary for moving forward with the project.
But we have other entities that help us with that in some of those development projects, like IDBs and. Right.
And just as a point of information, a number of the currently serving PBA board members were recently appointed to the JCDA when term limits rolled over. So lest anyone's getting off the hook for their volunteer service, we have kept them subscribed.
Yes. And on June 28th, the PBA held their last regularly scheduled meeting. In the meeting, they did approve their dissolution and the resolution moving forward for the Board of Commissioners' consideration.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, and a good bit of my questions were already answered based on your responses to my fellow commissioners. However, there's one more question I do have. Are there any outstanding invoices, expenses, or anything of that sort that needs to be reconciled before dissolving this entity? And I understand that there's been some dealings with RTG in their services, but wanting to know that everything has been taken care of.
Those have. The last invoices were concluded at the end of June. That wrapped up the expenses for the meeting as well as any other of their other outstanding administrative debts. There was an agreement with RTG that has been terminated pursuant to the terms of that agreement. The city will then, is anticipating entering into a new agreement with RTG that will pick up those services to move them forward in a different capacity.
Do we foresee the JCDA picking on picking up said projects that are similar to what the PVA has done in the past?
Standing here, I can't answer that. Mr. Trivett might be able to.
Yeah, I think the JCDA has their scope of work already outlined, which is a pretty full plate. I think if there are other avenues that we might be using PBA for, we would use the IDB or other economic development, our director of economic development in that department can decide the city to do this. There may be some other additional expenses that, as you mentioned or questioned earlier, that may come about as part of the audit. They closed out at the end of the fiscal year.
Oh, Mike, they want you to get to a mic there, sorry. I know.
They actually closed out as effective June the 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year, but then they will have to be audited for that previous year, and so there may be some expenses that come from that. The money that transfers back to the city will be used to pay for those additional expenses, which should be very minor.
Are there any properties that the PD?
They do not own any properties
PDA,
right now.
okay.
The only assets they basically have is that cash on hand.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Next item requested for consideration to be pulled is item 7.1.4, which is to consider approval of naming at the athletic complex of Winged Deer Park expansion, the James K. Ellis Athletic Complex.
And my comments are really more, I guess, about the process going forward. The Johnson City Press asked the question, you know, who should get something named? And I think that's an appropriate question to ask. James Ellis was our late Parks and Rec director. His contributions, particularly in the softball arena, are unquestioned. My comments are less about that decision and more about, I think, a bigger policy question that we as a commission need to be asking. We have nearly 1,000 employees, and our aspiration is that they all do exemplary work. In fact, our expectation is that they all do exemplary work. And I don't know that we're going to have 999 more opportunities to honor each of them in a like manner. And I just think we need to be considerate of that because we are sending a message. And so I would ask, not relative to this particular item, but I think the commission needs to revisit the policy document from whenever it was,
2014.
2014, thank you, that's about the naming. And just make sure that it reflects a process that we can all feel comfortable with and achieving some level of consistency in what we choose to pull out and hold up as an example. Mr. Ellis did an exemplary job. This is not about Mr. Ellis. This is about 999 other employees. We don't have a multi-million-dollar facility to name in their honor or memory.
Thank you all. I don't think there was any
We
questions.
appreciate you being here.
I do have another question, though, Ms. Norris and Mr. Bradley. Thank you for being here. One of the things, and I obviously support this naming, I'm a little concerned because everything's Winged Deer Park, and so we're talking about naming some of the new fields after Mr. Ellis. And so I just want to make sure that from and this may not be the right word, that we don't create some confusion, because you're going to have big tournaments there, and so some are going to play on this side, some are going to play on this side that has the name James K. Ellis Fields. I don't know if athletic complex would confuse people to think it's the whole Winged Deer Park. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
so the intent with this is, I'm not sure, the existing or complex that's already there, that complex is actually named the Raymond Huff Athletic Complex. What my intention is to, one, treat them both the same because that complex is also named, and to eliminate confusion for any of our teams that come there and play for not only our athletic programs but for the large tournaments that we have, is the existing complex will be re-signed as the Raymond Huff Athletic Complex at Winged Deer Park. The new complex, if you wish to continue with the naming process, it will be the James K. Ellis Athletic Complex at Weendeer Park. And that will help create the separation between the two, and also honoring both of those gentlemen in the same manner. And it will also help to identify, oh, we're playing at the Ellis Field, or we're playing at the Huff Fields. So that is our intent to
We're gonna have a lot
resign.
of fields, both softball,
Yes, ma'am.
soccer. I mean, it's gonna be amazing. So will each field be numbered sequentially? So I'm playing on field 13, that's.
They're going to use Greek letters. You're playing on pi, delta.
Yeah,
Right,
so
exactly.
also in order, we will not number them 1, 2, 3, 4, although in the plan right now, that's currently how they're numbered. They will continue the numbering from the existing complex.
okay.
So those will be 1, 2, 3, 4, over here will be 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
And that way, and then of course, the soccer fields will have numbering as well to coincide with the 3 soccer fields we already have at the existing complex.
If
So-
you've ever played at the CISA fields in Greenville, South Carolina, you're constantly looking for where the field is.
one
So
are we
to
playing at?
clarify, so just for those who don't know, the expansion at Wingdeer includes ball diamonds, but it also has a number of rectangles
It
for
does.
soccer.
Yes.
Are we naming the entirety of that expansion, or are we naming the quad that's essentially the ball diamonds, I guess,
It's-
nearer the front?
It's the entirety of the expansion, so it will follow the same suit as what the previous complex did, where it is actually, the entire complex is named after
So
Mr.
it
Huff.
one
includes the
person.
3 fields on one side and the 2 soft.
But we call
soccer
it
fields on the
Wingdeer
other.
Park.
It will be at Weendeer Park, so you'll
Okay.
have the James K. Ellis Athletic Complex at Weendeer Park, so, which is how the other one is technically named, it's just not signed that way. If you walk into the existing complex, there's a monument there that shows its naming, so,
So we're going to have the Huff side and the Ellis side.
that's right,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Of Wingdeer.
And also, if you guys haven't been there, you need to come in and check it out, because it's gonna be really nice. Probably one of the best in the South, I'd say.
Yeah.
So if you got time, you need to come and check it out. It's gonna be really nice.
I've been waiting till it's not muddy.
Yeah.
We just
And
can't
they're
get it
doing a
out.
good job out there too.
Yeah.
It's a group from King Sports, so yeah, they're doing an awesome job.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service, Mr. Bradley. Yeah.
That's the end of those. All right, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Can I formalize my request that we revisit our naming policy in a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or how would I memorialize the request that we revisit that policy document?
Does it have to be put on the agenda first?
Here's Sonny.
Because it's really two separate
Understand, I'm
things.
asking a question about how to achieve that outcome.
To officially achieve, you would make a motion to amend to add that. However, Commissioner, I think you'll be pleased to know that the legal department actually started work this week on revising and addressing that naming policy, as well as incorporating an advertising policy for the city, so.
So I would
it
make
is under
that,
work.
so let me say again what you just said. I could make a motion to approve it with that amendment?
You would first make the motion to amend, to add that action item to the
Okay.
consent agenda, and then the motion would be seconded, and then the agenda would be approved
So
with
I
the
would-
amendment.
No, I'd rather
With the
separate
consent
them.
agenda, can we do that with the
Oh,
consent?
good. Thank you, Mr. Trivett. This is the first meeting under the new effective law. Whenever that is an unanticipated item, which.
So can staff make
Advertise.
note of that and put
Yes.
it on our next meeting?
Yes.
Look at how easy it is when we just get to the
Absolutely.
heart of the
And
issue.
I'm-
All right,
like I
with
said, I'm-
that said, a
has
motion
been
to
noted.
approve the consent agenda,
Second.
and everyone noting the other.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of business is item number 8, which is the first reading of ordinances. Our ordinance is ordinance number 4859-23. This is the first reading and the public hearing. This is the FY 2023 supplemental budget ordinance. And I think Mr. Dustin Thompson is here with us.
Commissioners, good evening. Your FY '23 supplemental budget ordinance, it captures items that were not included in the original FY '23 ordinance or subsequent amendment. It also formalizes the amendments that were adopted by the Board of Education. You do have a detailed list in your packet on what's included in this amendment, but just a few highlights: the Ash Street Courthouse project, a property purchase for the West Walnut Street project, and other items of equipment that were purchased throughout the year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on this. Otherwise, I would recommend approval after public hearing.
I think I know the answer to this one, but number two, the $119,000, that is what we reimbursed the county?
Yes.
Because they put a new roof on recently?
Yes.
When we
Yes, that is
took
correct.
control of the building? Okay. And that came out of fund balance?
All right, anything else before I open the public hearing?
Is this one? Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah.
Guess not. All right, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on the first reading of the supplemental budget ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next items for consideration are under items 9, which are the second reading of ordinances. The first item is 9.1. This is ordinance number 4849-23. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to revise and update Title 15, Chapters 1, 7, 11, 12, 14, 15, and 16 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee.
There have been no changes or amendments to this ordinance since first reading. Since this is public hearing, I will briefly address what this ordinance is concerning. There are 8 sections in Title 15 that are proposed to be updated. These sections were identified as needing updating to coincide and be more consistent with our current TCA sections. These are the sections that are found under Title 55, which are called the Rules of the Road. These ordinances in our city code correspond to those traffic citations. So whenever an officer issues a ticket, you will see a local ordinance and you will also see a TCA code. At this time, these are the ones that have been identified as not being consistent with their language or with what the actual charge would be. What we have before you is the proposal that would bring both of those up to code, bring everything
Together.
on par. Yes, Mayor.
All right. Anything else before I open public hearing? All right, I will open the public hearing on this ordinance. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion in 2 seconds. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Next item, Commissioners, for consideration is item 9.2. This is ordinance number 4850-23. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to revise and update Title 12, Chapter 3 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Ms. Ball, Ms. Laus, Mr. Truitt. Nothing has changed since we first presented this. And just to remind everybody, this is the deletion of the shunt trip requirement, that it's required on any structure that is built, that the electric panel is over 10 feet within the structure from the exterior door.
I appreciate you being here for that. Any discussion before I open public hearing? All right, I will open the public hearing on this ordinance. Any electricians want to come forward and talk, or any construction people?
Builders,
Builders, anybody? All right, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of item for consideration is item 9.3. This is ordinance number 4851-23. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to revise and update Title 7, Chapter 2, Section 201 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee.
Good afternoon again.
Welcome back.
What this is an update to the existing Title VII that we did not update at the time when we accepted the fire code that we adopted in 2020. And this is basically a housekeeping. There is no change, no additional cost, and nothing has changed since we presented last.
All right, thank you. And again, I will go to the public hearing. Open the public hearing on this ordinance. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
The next order of business on the commission's agenda is ordinance number 4855-23. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, by changing from R4 district to B1 and R5 districts for property located at the southeast corner of Knob Creek Road and Pactolus Road. We have Ms. Rogers here to present this item.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, as Ms. Ball said, this is the second reading on this ordinance, and no changes have occurred since the first reading. The applicant would like to rezone the property from R4 to B1 and R5. The existing conditions is the site is 2 lots zoned R4. There's a non-conforming commercial use on the corner and 2 apartment buildings containing 8 apartments. The site has 7 curb cuts and 4 driveway entrances, and the tenants of those apartments currently use rolling trash bins out to Knob Creek Road. This is just an elaboration of those curb cuts and driveways. The proposed concept plan is still 2 lots, but configured differently so that the commercial use on the corner is a lot, and the remainder of the site, R5, is another lot. Construction of up to 28 townhomes. They would close 3 driveways, 2 to Knob Creek and 1 to Pactolus. And that was worked out as an option of other options to improve safety in the corridor. They would also add new sidewalks where they're closing those driveways, and add a sidewalk along Pactolus where there isn't one. They'll also have a dumpster enclosure, which will eliminate any rolling trash bins to the street. And they met all of the other requirements for a concept plan. The site is proposed for residential, but the commercial area has been commercial since before annexation. So it seems appropriate in the context of its location relative to other facilities and uses.
Can you go back 2 slides? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask the same.
Because
One more.
yeah, there we go.
Or-
Yeah.
So there will be no curb cuts on Knob Creek going into this?
They're going to, so there are still, they're removing the driveways. So there is a driveway here and another driveway here that they're going to close and put in curb and sidewalk to make sure that those are obviously closed. And then the street, the existing, for some reason, some of it could be maybe to let stormwater roll off or for a corner pedestrian access. I'm not really sure why there's all these curb cuts around the corner. But those, they didn't propose to do any modifications to any of those. They were just closing these driveways.
So to get to the bike store, you can still cut off of Knob Creek?
Yes.
Into the parking lot there?
A driver could.
4 or 5? Because
Yes.
I don't think there's a back entrance to the bike store.
There is.
A public entrance?
Yeah, I mean, off
Yeah,
of
see right
Pactolus.
Where the car is behind.
I wrecked a bike there once. I know.
So there
There's a very
is a-
precise place where you want to hit the ramp.
So
and
there's a
not
driveway
hit the
there,
ramp.
and the layout of the site would have the parking back there and along the side.
Okay. So all of the, in the residential that's going to be built there, some of it's already existing, right?
These
The
are all
Yeah.
replacing what is out there right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
right now, there are these two buildings, and you see they're oriented facing the street this
Right.
way.
How many units are in the current, do you know?
There's 4 units in each building, so there's 8.
And then, so the apartments, the residential will exit on Pactolus.
The entire site will,
Okay.
both uses. And we can go back and look at that one more time. So here, some of these units have parking with them. Maybe it's these ones, I don't know. Some of them will have under garages, and then the rest of them will use the surface parking that's provided.
And was this a design as far as access provided by the developer, or was that access that was recommended, instructed by staff?
You mean to change the access to solely from Pactolus? Staff offered a number of solutions to help mitigate the safety problem with sight distance at these 2 driveways. And one of the options was to move the Knob Creek driveway to the south property line. Another option was to try to figure out if a center median can be added to Knob Creek to restrict the driveways to right in, right out only. But we don't have enough right of way to install a median like that would actually serve that purpose. And the other option was to only use Pactolus for access, and that was the option they chose.
That is a very busy kind of intersection with Skyline Drive being offset. You
Mhm.
know, it's like go out and then turn left and then go back up to the right. I'm assuming it's a limited number of apartments, that it's really not going to add a great deal of more traffic in that particular area. Have we done that kind of estimates?
So I can speak to the conversations that we had together, the Development Services Department and the Public Works Department, but you can also ask them directly. So, like I said, we came up with these options to improve that safety, and removing those driveways is a huge increase. And so even though there's going to be some more residents using that driveway over on Pactolus, the overall thought is that it will be safer. And, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. We have Anthony Todd here. Anthony is our traffic engineer. Anthony has looked at these intersections and broken them down by time of day in terms of the amount of traffic, and I believe can provide more detail to answer your question, Commissioner
Probably has nothing to
Brock.
do with Science Hill. That's no impact on the traffic. No.
What we did was we looked at the site and looked at how the traffic would be exiting, because that would be the primary concern. So if we took the conservative approach to, say, 80% went back toward Knob Creek, and then 20% went in the other direction. So we started looking at the traffic volumes as related to that. So this site would produce 76 vehicles per day and going toward Knob Creek, and then 19 going back to the right, and this is from the residential only. And then if you broke that down to the AM and PM peak, which is primarily when you have the problems, you're looking at 7 going toward Knob Creek in the morning, that peak hour, and then you would have 2 going back toward Science Hill in the morning. And so in the evening, it would be 4 going toward Knob Creek and 1 going, and this is what you would typically expect based on the amount of traffic. So if we looked at the different scenarios, you've got the intersection. This is looking from Lacey. I think we all kind of know how it looks, but this is to let everybody kind of look at it one more time. And then we have issues, obviously, with sight distance on Skyline. We're aware of that. And then Pactolus actually is not bad. We have adequate sight distance for 35 miles per hour, which is what it's signed for. I realize that some people don't drive the speed limit, so as they go beyond the speed limit, it does become more uncomfortable. But looking back to the left, you can see around the bike shop, and so we have adequate sight distance in that direction. Here's some pictures of approaching the intersection on Pactolus. That's what they would see. And then as you start looking at the driveways, you can see the driveway on Pactolus at the bike shop in the front there. And then this is looking across from the other side of the street, the existing entrance from behind the bike shop. As you look out of the exit from the bike shop, you have, this is looking back toward Knob Creek. And then looking back to the right, and back toward Science Hill, that's what you would see.
Sorry.
Oh, it's leaking.
Oh, it's
Must be
leaking.
really raining outside.
I don't think that's just rain. There's something more going on there. Exactly. This brief interruption has been brought to you by a roof leak. Yeah, I don't think that that's supposed to be happening.
Got a leak in the chain.
Yeah. We'll adjourn
Yeah,
for just
it's
a
in the
moment while we get
CIP.
this figured out, and then we'll be back. So.
Where's Dustin? What's the CIP got in it from the roof? So how long did we recess for?
JT was running out there, so.
Sarah
I am
flashing.
going to
Are they gonna count us in?
reopen the meeting. He just flashed that we're going, so we'll go on. Anthony, where we were when
We're
we
still not under.
were.
Are you ready for us to start?
They're good.
Good to go.
Good to go.
All right, we're back. I will really open the meeting now. Go ahead, Mr.
So as you look out of the driveway behind the bike shop, that would be approximately where the driveway would be. So this is about what you would see, looking back toward Knob Creek. And then if you look back toward Science Hill, that's approximately what you would see, looking out of that driveway. So as you can see, the sight distance isn't awful. It's not perfect, but it's not awful either. Now this is the driveway down below the bike shop. And as we look out of that driveway, this is where the problem is. So you can't see adequately to make a good decision, to pull out of that driveway and turn left. Even at the next driveway, which is an existing one for the apartments, it's still not adequate sight distance. It's just not there. Moving all the way down to their property line, it's still a problem. It obviously gets better the farther you go down, but it's still a problem. And this is looking out of Pactolus, right here at the stop bar, looking back to the right. That's the most limited that you've got. In the other direction, it has an appearance that they go out of sight, but the cars stay in sight. And as we know from Skyline, it is a problem. So looking back to the left, there's your issue. Looking back to the right, and there's your issue. To solve the Skyline problem is quite a job. You would have to build walls, you would be destroying somebody's yard. You would probably be buying easements to keep it clear long-term. So it would be quite a job, and we have not put together a project for that.
Mr. Todd, the other congestion problem there is the Jeremiah School when they start in the morning and then when they let out. There are school zone signs that, do you know if they flash or they slow traffic down to 25 miles an hour at that point or less?
They do drop the traffic speed down to 25 miles per hour.
Okay. But the regular is 35 miles an hour on Knob Creek.
That is correct.
Have we ever considered maybe lowering it to 30? Or is it some kind of state something?
Well, it is based on you're supposed to do a 85th percentile speed study. And if 85% of the vehicles are not going any slower, you're not going to lower the speed of the traffic without having an officer there all the time, which we obviously cannot do.
Do we ever put like preventive signs up that warns the traffic that it's a congested intersection or anything that would say caution? Or is there anything we can do that, might at least warn people?
We do put up signs that tell you of an intersection ahead. We don't put anything to talk about congestion or a dangerous intersection of that nature because they don't present a clear image to the driver how they're supposed to respond to them. So what we do is we tell them where the intersection is, that it's coming up, and give them appropriate speed that they should be driving in that area so that they can make a proper decision.
We don't have anything like that there.
We can certainly add those in that area, and many cases the driver on the main road is the problem, not so much the side street. And so we can certainly add those signs there. I'm not sure that they would make a difference in the way people drive.
Well, if you think it's warranted, or, take a look at it, since we are going to be adding a little bit more,
Sure.
Into that area, and it's already as it
Absolutely.
is.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Anything else before I open the public hearing? All right, I will open the public hearing on this ordinance. Anyone here to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And do I have a motion?
Just want to acknowledge some emails we've had from neighbors, and that's what prompted me to ask staff to address some of the traffic considerations. I'm going to make a motion to approve it. I think the elimination of the curb cuts on Knob Creek are, and, you know, consolidating onto Pactolus with one entry point are a net gain in this project, not even taking into account the value of expanding housing options. And so I think the net effect here is going to be positive. Most of the traffic issues that I see, and this is near where I live, is really the Skyline side of Knob Creek. It's not the Pactolus side. And so I would make a motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, your next order of business is item 9.5. This is ordinance number 4856, -23. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to rezone approximately 118 acres located along Suncrest Drive as associated with the Keebler annexation from R2B district to RP3 district. Ms. Voren.
Good evening, Commissioners. In front of you, I have the request to rezone a piece of the Keebler property. Just as a reminder, this property was annexed on May 4th, so it is currently in the city limits, currently zoned R2B, and they are requesting RP3. So again, I know that this has gone through a lot of steps, so our STAR is continually moving forward, and we are now on second reading and public hearing for this item, and then should it be approved tonight, it will go to third and final reading on August 3rd, and then I think that might be the last time it's before you guys. So again, that request is just for this area on the other side of Ford Creek, and so they are requesting to go from that low-density district to the RP3, which is the planned residential district. This concept plan is binding, so that means that the plat that they submit will have to be in conformance with this concept plan. Any changes to it would have to come back before you all. Tonight is public hearing, and if you guys have any questions, I am happy to answer those. There are still no changes from the first reading.
Can you comment about the lot averaging? Are we going to see different, formats of lots?
Yes, so because this is submitted with the concept plan, this averaging situation that they have laid out here would be binding. So the plan that they submit would have to be in conformance with these sizes provided.
The green spaces, are those to be maintained by an HOA or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anything else before I open public hearing?
Just one final question. I think, is the brown line along the creek, that's a trail?
Yes, so
Okay.
this brown line right here is like a walk that would have to meet the open space standard requirements.
I know at one time the developer talked about it going all the way out to Boone. Is that still on the plan, or is it just going to be right here in the neighborhood?
I'm not sure. Anything that is not associated with this specific property wouldn't be something that he would be bound to do.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, I will open the public hearing on this ordinance. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Seeing none, I will close
Move
the public
approval.
hearing. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor and Vice Mayor and Commissioners, the final item we have on the agenda for tonight, that's item 10.1. This is a financial report presentation. I would point out to you that this is just a presentation. It is not, we are not asking for it to be adopted at this point in time. But thank you for your patience over the past year. We have really worked hard to get to the point where we can have this have this information available to you. I know that last year Mr. Trivett, along with the finance staff, worked very hard, And now with Ms. Laus coming on board and working with us, we are now at the point where we can provide this to you on a monthly basis. So I don't know, Ms. Laus, if you want to cover information or just answer questions.
I can go over just a quick summary, a quick highlights. And once we get these to be more formalized to where we're doing them more monthly, I will have a presentation. This is just very informal, it is preliminary. So currently, our revenue is projected to end up around $500,000 below the original budget. I will point out the main reason for that is the closing of the jail. There's about $1 million in revenue that was originally budgeted for the jail money that we don't have in receipts, and so that's, if we had gotten that money, we would end up above budget. Sales tax is continuing to be really, really strong. We're looking to end up about $2.6 million more than last year, and about $3.5 million above what we originally budgeted. Other big piece, the hotel and motel tax is really, really strong this year. It's about $1.3 million above original budget is what we're projecting to be out at the end of the year.
Do y'all have line of sight to the lodging tax coming in through Airbnbs, or is it lumped together?
So, that piece, I don't believe that we are taxing the short term. We are?
We are. We changed our ordinance.
Okay, so
year
I
and a half
need
ago,
to, I can get more information on that. We're working towards getting some more transparency in our hotel and motel tax and the way that that's reported out. So I can get some more information on that.
Yeah, good.
I will point out that even though our revenues are expected to be below budget, expenditures are coming in right now at $3 million below budget, and they're anticipated to be around 3.5 below budget. And this is just for the general fund. So all departments appear to be well within their budgets. I will point out that the financials that you received do not include the supplemental budget ordinance that was passed back in April. We have historically, that's not been added to the financial software on a regular basis, and Dustin and I have worked out a method to do that going forward so that everything will be real time.
Good. Any other questions? All right.
Well, I would just like to compliment the staff for, on the expenditure side, really managing their budgets, and so congratulations.
All right, nothing more on the agenda. Anything else you'd like to add, Commissioner Wise?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir.
I have nothing else either, so I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thank you for all the work you did to get that ready for us too, so.
Let's compliment the Doughboys.
Absolutely.
They are leading in their league.
Yeah, they were 28-8, I believe, last I saw. Have
Yeah.
won the last 9
And that
games in
Bat
a row.
Dog. What is that?
Sellout,
Bat Dog?
I mean,
sellout.
nobody likes the Bat Dog more than.
Sellout crowds, I mean,
It's
goodness.
a great deal. So if you hadn't had a chance, there's just like a week and a half left in the
Yeah.
season before it looks like they're going to the playoffs
Yeah, if
too,
you want to
so.
go people watch, that's a great
Man.
place to go.
And if you want some good concessions, they got a lot of concessions going on. If nothing else, I will close the meeting.